Welcome to Rocket Resources, where we're fueling your exhibition success with expert knowledge and advice from the Rocketeers. In this episode, I'll be joined by Mr. Mark Eddy from Pragmatico Partnership, who will be joining me to talk about why exhibitions work. So strap yourselves in and let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Rocket Resources, where we're helping you get the most out of your next exhibition. Now today I'm joined by Mr. Mark Eddy.
Hello.
Mark has spent too many years in exhibitions as working as a chief commercial officer for one of the biggest stand contracting companies in the world, and also now as a consultant and advisor to lots of other contractors, including myself. So Mark, thank you very much for joining me today.
You're very welcome. Nice to be here. Thank you, Noel.
Today we're going to be talking about why exhibitions work and just a bit of background about exhibitions for people who understand what an exhibition is but might not really link it to how beneficial it will be for their business to do one. So it's really just a case of looking at the exhibition industry as a whole and the benefits that it can bring as a marketing tool for companies that are looking to grow.
Definitely.
So, why do exhibitions work, Mark?
I think an interesting statistic out there that not many people know, but the UK has a population of about 69 million people, and up-to-date statistics, up until 2023 apparently, said that about 6.9 million, so 10%, actually attend actively trade shows and various other exhibitions. So there's something working out there, and a lot of people are going to it and actually see the benefit of it. So I think when you unpack that and you see that there's an enormous infrastructure, and we are the sixth largest economy in the UK, which is another sort of hidden statistic, that actually it's highly effective. And I think it boils down to the fact that people like to deal face to face.
Yeah, for sure.
The power of physically being face to face then unravels all sorts of other benefits.
Yeah. So let me just go back on a few things there. So 10% of the UK population go to trade shows.
Correct.
So if you unpack that and just think how many people are actually involved in business that would actually do a trade show, that's massive.
It's absolutely huge. And then when you think that some people get concerned about where are my next leads going to come from, my next customers are going to come from, and actually you then boil it down and say, well, actually, if I had 20 more meaningful clients, how much activity have I got to do to promote them and get in front of them? And actually, we've got this ready-made audience that wants to get on a train, wants to get on a bus, wants to drive to these venues, wants to actively engage. Then actually that's when you really start to see the power of what exhibitions and live events is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So you also mentioned there about the sixth largest economy.
Yeah.
When you say we, you talk about the exhibition business.
I think the exhibition, when you see it in its collective source, so all the catering that goes into it, all the hotels, the actual exhibition stand, the venue, all the the totally integrated services that then come together to make that happen. You actually need a large array of industries, and it's incredibly powerful. It's from the business community, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm completely biased because I've worked in exhibitions for 25 years. But I still get a massive buzz from seeing a show floor and seeing people interact. And also when you get a first-time exhibitor, after the show, they're like on cloud nine, can't believe it. Like, we've met so many people, all within our wheelhouse, all our target market. Now we've got to really follow it up. And I still get such a buzz from that, as I did 25 years ago as a young boy, really opening my eyes to trade and seeing what the power of a medium and how it can do. And I know everyone loves, Google, pay-per-click and all that sort of stuff right now. But trade shows, you just can't beat it, can you?
Well, I think it's that serendipity of where you don't know quite what's happening. But as long as you've got a plan and you're presenting your services or your products in the best possible way, and then, people want to engage, and it's people come alive when they're face to face, and it's and it's only, just after COVID, everybody thought that, digital was going to, the online experience was going to completely consume it. And that's been completely the reverse.
Yeah.
We've got acquisitions going on in our industry that have, that is huge across all different walks. So there is so much value there. And so what we want to be able to do is to, those companies that are trying to make their first step into that, is giving them that confidence to know that actually this is it's the most permissive form of marketing there is out there.
Yeah.
By the very nature that you want to attend means that you're engaged, you're interested, you're looking for something to buy or find more about it.
Yeah.
And it's that exploratory process.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier about people that are getting on a train or getting in the car and driving to somewhere and actively registering and doing it. That buyer intent or that intent to engage is just massive, isn't it?
Well, I think there's a statistic out there that says, 81% of the people that are actually attending trade shows actually have buying authority. So all of a sudden you've got all the people that you're trying to attract to your exhibition through all the processes that you've done before with marketing, talking to your existing customers, talking to prospects. Hi, we're going to be coming to this exhibition. But you're still going to get passing trade, some people that quite haven't seen that. And you wouldn't get that any other way.
Yeah.
So, and if you think about that stat of 81% of people that have buying authority that come into an exhibition, that's huge. All of a sudden, you've got this amazing captive audience, but your responsibility is to have your game face on. Your responsibility is to know: have I got my team teed up in the right possible way to make use of all of those conversations in the best possible way, because it's that lasting impression. So there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
It isn't just a case of turning up, as we both
As
know.
we both know, yeah.
There is a lot of work to do to get to match fit.
There is, and that's the whole point of doing these Rocket resources, is to really help people to get. We know it all works, but it's about how to get the most out of it. What companies can do to make sure that their next event is a success for their business. So when we talk about people's readiness to exhibit, obviously most people, it's not the day job.
No.
They're doing it as either an addition or something, and they think this is part of our marketing mix. There's a trade show in our sector. We think that's the audience is right. We've got a good product or service. Let's book a stand. What advice do you think you could give to someone who's in that position, but either they've done a show before and just thinking, oh, that's a new show, that's a slightly different market, maybe we could have a go there. What are the key things you think in terms of when you're booking a space or thinking about booking a space? What do you think are the go-to things that people need to think about?
First and foremost, find a really good partner to help you take you on that journey, where find a decent contractor, design supplier, whatever it is that you're currently working with, and give them as much information as possible, because these are the people that are actually like yourselves and like other really great companies out there that know how to do this. They know how to save you time. I think too often people try to do a bit of a DIY approach to the whole thing when they're first getting started, and all of a sudden they think that's where they're going to save money, where actually invariably they can end up costing them more, but also absorbing way too much more of their time than they had ever hoped to plan to do.
Yeah.
So finding good, credible suppliers that will actually help you fast track and be efficient, and by listening to them, because what they want to do is to make you successful.
Yeah.
So that, I would say, that is probably one of the most important things, is allow somebody else in to give that advice, even if you think it's costing money, because sadly exhibitions is not a cheap exercise.
No, for sure.
But it is actually an incredibly cost-effective exercise if it's done well.
Yeah, it's definitely good value. There's no doubt about that. You can't get into the space of 2 or 3 days the efficiency, the volume of interactions, leads, qualifications anywhere else.
Correctly. And so making sure that you plan, commit to having a plan, commit to delivering that plan, and you will get the results.
Yeah, for sure. So choosing a contractor then, that's a really good one. There's loads of contractors out there, based all over the country, all over the world. My advice on that as a top tip would be to look at ESSA, which is the Event Services and Suppliers Association.
Agreed.
Have a good look on their website. It's got lists all the members and what they're good at. That's a really good place to start. Look for recommendations. I'd say speak to other people who you know that might do exhibitions. See if anyone can recommend you somebody, and just have a chat with a few. I'd check them out, look them online, check their online reviews, see what the images of their work.
Yep.
do those kind of bits of groundwork and try and whittle it down to 3 before you reach out to somebody, I would say.
Definitely, and I would also say try not to sort of go out to about 10 different ones and to try and sort of and literally trying to chase the cheapest cost, because actually, one, it's not fair on all of them because they're giving up their time and what have you, and also perversely, it's actually absorbing way too much more of your time.
Yeah, it's too many, isn't it?
It is. It's way too many, and people have fallen into that trap in the past. So literally, get it down to, as you said, get it down to about 3.
Yeah.
And try and get a variety in there. But as you said, do your research. I think S is a great place to start because actually, they're accredited, they're recognised, and they're part of an official body. Yeah. Some of the organisers that you might have signed up to, they might actually have a recommendation. But also, I think what you also said is, if you know somebody that's actually gone out and done some exhibiting and you've not done it before, have a chat with them. Get what are their experiences. What would they do again? What would they not do again? Yeah. Because those are all the areas that are going to save you time and, more importantly, money.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the point you made about checking with the organizer and see who they recommend. I like that. However, I would do your research and find out and ask the question if those contractors are paying to be recommended.
Correct.
As opposed to being recommended because they're good at what they do. Now, I know that we're recommended with some organisers and not with others. We turn stuff away if we ask to pay, because we don't feel that it's a cost that we'd have to add on to the exhibitor, and ultimately we want to keep that ROI as good as possible. So as a rule, we don't do that. But I know that, so it's just worth thinking about as to, when you're making your decisions, is it someone who's paying to be recommended, or are they recommended because they're good at what they do? Just worth asking a question, I think.
No, definitely. And I think that's all part of just getting a rounded picture
Absolutely,
of what's out there.
Yeah.
But there's lots of really good companies out there, and I think the key is listen to them. If they're doing good work, they're making success, if they look at the testimonials from their clients, and people don't give good testimonials just because they feel like it. They do it because they feel passionate that they should do, because they've had a great experience. Yeah. And that's exactly what you want to be able to have.
For sure. And to be fair, when someone goes out of their way to leave you a good testimonial, it's so kind, because we all have great experiences every day with things, and we don't leave reviews. So when someone goes out of their way to actually leave you a positive review, you could almost bet your bottom dollar that there's 100 others that have had a great experience and haven't.
Yeah.
Usually people are pretty quick to jump on it when they've not had a good experience, and are keen to leave that feedback. And also I think with reviews, for me personally, I always look and see if someone's just got 5 stars across the board. I'm always really skeptical about that. I want to see the odd 1-star review. I want to see something where it's gone wrong, and then see what the response was to that, and how they've reacted to it, because stuff does go wrong.
Well, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, we're in the business of building prototypes for a living, is an expression that I like to use, because actually it's not sitting on the shelf. Yeah. That you've had a brief, and it's not sitting there waiting for you to do to have exactly what you want. And so, by the very nature, there is a bespoke element to this, whether it's using a system or whether it's out of a classic custom build. Both sides are equally sustainable as long as you choose the right partner, because I think that's a very important element to add into it. But it's I think it's just doing your due diligence, and that's time spent at that front will actually reward you. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think we've covered off the contracts a bit. Good. So what about when choosing a show? What advice would you give to people who are, when they're looking at weighing it up, what shows should they be going to? Do you have any tips for? I think interestingly enough, there are some people that turn up to shows and you go, why on earth are they there? But then you suddenly look at actually who's their target market, who's their ideal customer profile, what is it that your product and service is doing, and actually are there other areas that if your customer is, you might try and find a good example, but someone selling motor cars are turning up at shows that have got nothing to do with motor cars at all, because actually what they're doing is they're targeting the demographic that's going to that show. Yeah. And is there a way of standing out? Yeah. Now, yes, you want to be going to some of the marquee ones, because actually if you are attending a key show in your industry, it means that that you're turning up, you're in a recognised environment, there's a forum of people that are going to turn up that are the right demographic. But you also could look at other areas, maybe smaller shows, where actually I'm still interested in that target market, but it might not necessarily be around our specific industry. That works for some companies, doesn't work for all companies, but I think it's having, really understanding where you want to, what you're trying to do and who you're trying to attract. And but more importantly, I would say go and visit, shows.
Yeah.
Don't just pick
Try
one
before
out.
you buy.
Try before you buy, walk and say, yes, actually I could do with, why aren't I here?
Yeah.
My voice and image and brand could really stand out. I think we've got something that could make a difference. And actually I need to talk to them. So literally try before you buy, attend as many shows as you can where possible, so that you feel as that you've invested the time and you're getting some feedback for yourself that you think is going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, I really like that. There's a marketing phrase around, you understanding who your customers are and then identifying where they hang out. And I think that to me, that's stuck in my mind when I read that a couple of years ago. And is like, you've really got to think about, where do they hang out? A lot of people, obviously LinkedIn is great. There's lots of, business people, if I would call them that, business owners, senior execs, people who are involved in transactions, I would say. LinkedIn is great for that, because lots of people are there. They're hanging out there. They're going in there a couple of times a day, or at least once a day. They're there. They're engaging content. They're there, and shows are perfect for that as well. It's where are they hanging out? Where is your target market hanging out? And that could be anywhere, but exhibitions is a really, really great place.
And it's interestingly enough, it's one of those things that some businesses don't do enough. Really nailing who is their ideal customer profile and understanding what are their buying persona, what are the buying personas, what are their problems, and then trying to understand it and then talk back to those problems. And so, as I said, and some different exhibitions might actually be a bit of a surprise, but go, actually that could really work for us.
Yeah.
So don't discount the stuff that's not obvious.
Yeah.
As well, if you're wanting to stand out.
Yeah, and like you say, if you've got those ideal customer profiles nailed, and you can speak to those people, you can identify them and speak to them, and train your team, so when that person comes onto the stand, and they can identify, oh yeah, you fit that profile. Okay, now I know exactly how to talk to you. I know what your pain problems are. I can discuss those with you, and I can reinforce how we are the people to work with.
And I think that's a really interesting point. So it's actually teaching. Because just having a great exhibition stand is great, and it's part of an attraction, and it makes you stand out, and it's got your messaging on it. But actually your staff need to be able to, all the people that are on your stand, need to be able to talk very fluidly to whoever's going to be coming on the stand, and actually making sure that they are trained to be able to sort of manage that. Because sometimes sticking the salesperson on isn't necessarily the right person that's actually going to do the right job.
Yeah.
And it's and there are different companies out there that help people train staff to actually work on stands, to actually get the right questions and to push that message forward, because it's all an integrated process of who am I talking to, what does the stand look like, what's our messaging, what does the brand look like, and there's lots of things to juggle, but when you get it right, that's when you get really good qualified opportunities, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Do you think people spend enough time training their staff? And really?
No,
definitely.
in a word.
Yeah.
Because I think they take it for granted that they know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time when they'll stand up, they'll be able to say one message, but actually that may not be how the person that's come onto the stand wants to hear it.
Yeah.
And that's why understanding and segmenting and your target audiences and how you're going to be able to react to them.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants a slightly different message.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I understand. We do exhibitions ourselves, as you know. We do Confex, B2B Marketing Expo, and those, it always worries me to think like we do this is our day job. We do this as a living. We advise people, we help them to get the most out of their shows. Do we do a good enough job ourselves? And we do. We always get great leads. We always get really good results from when we do trade shows. And I think for us, it's super niche. Like what we do as a business, although we cover all industries, as a stand designer build contractor, that is so niche. And finding shows that really work for us is really hard. But it's about where are our people hanging out. B2B Marketing Expo, for example, is for marketeers. I'm not necessarily interested in events or specifically, but they are marketeers, so there'll be a large number of them who use events as part of their marketing mix. They'll be there, so that's great for us. And we do a good job of interacting with them, but it does always worry me, are we as good as we think we are? And I like that, because that bit of humility and to always question your own ability to do something means you'll constantly be trying to just do better, make sure you are good at what you do.
Yeah, well, never was that never rest on your laurels. You know, don't be complacent thinking that just because I do a great job for other people, am I doing a great job for myself?
Yeah.
You know, and we always have to be get the inner critic going to ourselves, because that's what drives us to be better.
Yeah.
Definitely. Always question yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. But also back yourself.
Yes.
You know,
100%.
Yeah,
like,
I'm a big believer in
I nearly said that goes without saying, but it doesn't always.
No, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, self-belief is a big thing.
Huge.
Spoken about that a lot. So we've spoken about choosing contractors, training the staff, which is top tip. Absolutely get that absolutely nailed. Be really clear about your ideal customer profile, who you're talking to, and what that messaging is for those people. So be super clear. And what happens? How do you take those leads? What do you do with those leads after? Following up. So let's talk about that after show, post show. So you've been to the show, it's been fantastic. You come home really sore feet, exhausted, sore throat because you've been talking for 2 solid days, and you're like, right, I've got this pot of gold here of all these people that we've spoken to, who've had some great conversations. I'm excited. Some of these things we need to jump on straight away. Others are a long-term burn. What do you think good looks like when it comes to following up?
Well, I would say that if you've got an ability to be able to follow up immediately after, say, somebody's left an exhibition stand. So, for example, they've taken a lead, they've bothered to sit and talk to you for 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long it is. If you can have a process where, literally you've taken their information, at the end of it, you can even just a simple text message say, actually, just at the point of actually them going back, say, 10 minutes later and say, thank you, really appreciated your time coming onto the exhibition, to come and talk to us. Looking forward to following up. Please enjoy the rest of your show. Thank you very much. What have you? Well, it's another lasting message to say that you've respected their time, because they've given up. They've given up time to do that. But yeah, the leads, they have to be followed up. They've got to be logged. I'm a huge CRM user. I would be advocating, anybody that knows me says that if you don't know your data, you don't know how to move forward, and actually being able to respond when you said you were going to back to them. So you need to be back at the office. They need to be the first things that you immediately get out of the door as a follow-up, as you say you do. Because part of your brand is following up on the promise that you said that you were going to keep. And if your promise is that you deliver great quality, you do this and that, the other, and that you would follow up with them, then you have to deliver on that promise of following up, because that's the first stage in reminding them about you, and also while you're still fresh in their eyes and ears. So that's terribly important. But I would say that it's a nice touch to be able to send a little message, text, because they've validated by the conversation, they've given that data. Thank you, really appreciate you coming. Looking forward to following up our conversation. And there's a stat that's out there that there's 7 points of contact to make somebody a little bit more stickier, or that they really start to understand and want to deal with you. So that could be one of the first ones. So think, are there 7 touch points that we're doing along the way? Because and it might be that you've also said, you spoke to somebody and they said, well, our show's not for another 6 months. And you go, that's fine. Actually, this is a great time to be talking, because we sometimes give out newsletters, we give out insights. Are you interested in that? And if they go, actually, no, that might be useful, then you've got an opportunity to then touch your brand by receiving something, and they go, oh yeah, that was actually quite helpful, without it being an overly salesy conversation.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a client on site last week, and he made a really interesting point about following up and how he doesn't follow up straight away, because he feels that everyone will follow up straight away. So there's a big influx. Everyone you've spoken to at the show, let's say you've spoken to 30 stands, for different things, you're going to get a whole influx of stuff into your inbox. So he said, it's crowded work, it's a crowded space. So let that fight happen, and then come in after, which is quite valid, great idea. The other thing is about avoiding the unsubscribe, so not giving people the opportunity to unsubscribe to emails. So if you're following up with an email straight away after and you get loads, you think, oh God, yeah. If you're at the risk of that. Now, personally, I think the risk is quite low, depending on how niche that audience is. I think if you're there at a trade show, you've gone onto a stand, you've spoken to someone, it's very unlikely you're going to unsubscribe from something that they receive first. But depends on the person, right?
My argument against that, I think they're really valid. But my argument against that is if you're going to deliver such a positive reaction, and that you feel that they got a positive reaction from yourself, that they would remember that and they won't unsubscribe to you. If they're going to unsubscribe to you, then they're not going to be right for you in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's a fair point of view. But I would still say you still need to follow up pretty soon afterwards. And it can just be a really light touch. It doesn't have to be overly salesy. I was saying it could just be, once again, appreciate you coming. And I don't want to. And as agreed from our conversation, so if you can bespoke it so it's not all just a random same response that's going out to everybody, where it says, as per our conversation, you said you weren't ready to really talk about this for about another month. I'll schedule a call in a month's time, if that's okay. In the meantime, thank you very much. So anything that then goes back to the actual conversation that you had, where they feel that they were then heard and they're not just the number, then I think that's going to help. And at the end of the day, if they're going to unsubscribe, then they're not going to be the right clients for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. So one of the things that will happen straight after the show or during the show is that you will probably be approached by the organizer about rebooking the stand for next year, or rebooking a different stand. It's a very common practice, and I mean personally, I love that. I like the idea of it. I think it gives from an organizer perspective, it's great. You can potentially pre-fill the show floor for next year, so tick for them. It gives you the opportunity to get the space that you want if you're planning on doing it again, even if you're not definitely going to do it. Definitely have that conversation to say, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, then I would want to be here. I want this size stand. I want to go bigger, or this is actually a bit too big for us. We don't need this. We can reduce that down a bit. I want to be in this area, near the networking areas, near the entrance, whatever it is that people want to be. And I don't think there's pros and cons for everything. I think if you're in the room, you're in the room. I don't really believe that there's a big difference in a good space or a bad space. Some people want to be near the toilets. Some people couldn't think of anything worse. Personally, I wouldn't want to be there. I think because people like that because you've got lots of people coming past. But they're coming past for a reason, to go to the toilet, not to see you. But I don't really believe that there's bad spots in halls. I mean, if you're at the back end of nowhere and facing a blank wall, then I would agree that. But I think as long as you're facing to another exhibitor or into the hall, I think you're good. But you still might want to be at a specific place. I would be wary that if you're booking a stand based on where someone else is booked for next year, because that could change. Because normally there'll be a calling off period, so you'll sign up to it and then you'll get a period to call off, usually a couple of weeks, to go and do your follow up and really gauge. And really, 2 weeks is not enough time to know if the event was a success. For some people, maybe they can get instant results from things, but for what we do personally, it's a much longer burn. You're talking about projects for the following year. You're not going to know. You'll have a feeling, but you won't know. But again, if it goes back to the decisions you made in the first place, is it the right people? You'll know that. You'll know if it was the right people based on the people you met or have met during the show. So I think I would always recommend people to seriously consider that. Don't just put a red card up to that to say no, we'll wait and see. I think it's always good to keep that option open. And also, if you don't want to commit to it, you can release it. But I think it just puts you more in control. It also save a bit of money as well. Sorry.
True. No. And I think it doesn't happen for very many people, but sometimes there might be an opportunity as a result of this, is that you've spoken to them about for next year to be taking a speaking slot on one of the theatres. Yeah. So if that then becomes something that you want to do, what you might want to then also do, say, actually, if I'm going to exhibit again, is there any way I can move my exhibit so it's actually slightly closer to the theatre area, as long as it's in the right zone, because obviously you might be part of an industry show where they're trying to keep people into zones. Because that might be another great way of saying, great, thank you very much, and if you're interested in having a chat with us after this, we're only just over there, or what have you. It's another way of signposting people there. But that doesn't happen for very many people. But depending on how you want it, it's a bit like try before you buy. So you've gone for the first time, you're feeling it out, and then you see what other people are doing, and you go, oh, actually, I think I'd quite like to go there next time, or I'd like to go there, or actually, I think where they put us worked really, really well because we got a lot of through traffic. But you'll only know that by physically being there and having that experience.
Yeah.
So your gut feel will be, yes, sign me up, but actually, there might be an opportunity to move at another stage, as you said. But I would. Also, you're capturing it in the moment, because if it's not your day job, you don't want to suddenly then think about this in 4 weeks' time, 4 months' time, and then go, oh, I'm not sure where I want to go. Your gut feel is usually correct.
Yeah.
Most people's guts are pretty bulletproof. It's not infallible, obviously, but it's, and use the time effectively. So
yeah, I'm a massive believer in that. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You send up something else ticked off the list. You mentioned a really good point there about speaker slots, and I think I want to put that in as a top tip, that if you are doing an exhibition and you're negotiating a space, have a chat to them and try and negotiate that in, that you do get a speaker slot, because if you've really got something to say, a good story, good products, good, and you can deliver it well, I think it's a really powerful thing, and could be a really good opportunity to really leverage the impact that you make.
It's another great way of you sort of promoting, please come along, not only to our stand, but actually we're doing a specific talk in the whatever theatre it is, and that adds credibility, to yourself and your messaging, and along way that you'll attract other people that hadn't heard of you before.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I don't know if you follow James Sinclair. He's got the Business Broadcast podcast, and recently I was at an event with James, and that was one of his top tips as well, was getting speaking slots. And he always tries to do that. If he's doing a show, he will always get a speaking slot, and also then use that to really leverage, like you say. And if you want to find out more, come and see us on stand, whatever. So I think that's a really, really good point, and something I'm going to try and do myself.
Interesting. Adam Parry who put a from the event exhibitions. Event Tech Live, thank you very much. Put out a post the other day. Actually, was actually talking about speaking slots, and actually the value of them. And actually, people are looking for good speakers. Obviously, don't just turn up unless you're prepared and you've got something really good to do. But actually, it's a great way of you extending your brand and getting in recognition as well. So,
and even if you have a keynote prepared, that something that you talk about in your industry and is relevant, that's great. But you also get panel sessions.
Yep.
So offer to go on a panel session, because people want good people who can be engaging and can talk and have industry authority. That's what everyone's there for.
And I think as long as you've got the passion for what you do, because actually nobody wants to stand up there and watch somebody a bit dry sort of delivering something. You want somebody that's got a bit of energy and natural passion. Then you're going to attract attention, and hopefully that adds to the bucket of sort of how do I attract clients? Is it through your social media? Is it by an outreach program for a mail shot that you're doing or what have you? And it might be that actually, I saw you at the speaker slot. Actually, that's why I've come along to have a chat with you.
Yeah.
You just don't know. Yeah. You need a bit of all of these things going on at the same time.
And that's like you get sort of fast interactions and slow interactions. The people that are there and then in the moment listening, you'll get that immediate response. Also, what you can do is create content around it. Yeah. If you've got someone filming it and creating shorts, filming the keynotes gives you another point to send out from social. So you've got that to use over a longer period of time. When you talk about, we were recently at this show, this is what our CEO said. It really does enforce your key person of influence in your sector. So I think it's an absolute no-brainer.
And at the end of the day, you've got a product or service out there. You're attracting. You're solving people's problems.
Yeah.
So naturally, people. But so why not build a nice sort of talking piece around that, and so people can actually understand it, and it brings it to life a bit more. Yeah. 100%.
And also and if you don't feel confident doing that, get confident doing it.
Yes.
Because if you don't do it, someone else will. So I think that's a really good one. So when we talk about measurements of success, what does success look like? What advice would we give to people who are doing a trade show and they think, right, okay, I know, they're going to set some objectives. We're big fans of that. You've got to be really clear on your objectives right at the start. Before you talk to your contractor, you want to know or even before you book your space, you want to know, okay, we're thinking about doing this show. What do we want to get out of it? what are our objectives for being there? Because if you're not clear on that, it's pointless even starting.
I agree. 100%.
So you've got to do that first off. But then when it comes to measuring the success against those objectives, how would people go about doing that?
Oh, this is almost like a black art, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
it is, yeah.
and I'm so glad that you actually said objectives, not return on investment, because trying to get ROI out of a specific event is very difficult to define, because actually somebody may have seen you from stuff that you've done on Google Ads or other campaigns that you've done, and then they've eventually come to an exhibition. So it's very difficult to tie where has the return on investment come from specifically. So objectives is far better. So, first of all, it would be definitely how many meetings do we want to have pre-arranged before we turn up, so that we've gone out, we've spoken to our customers and our prospects and said, actually, let's have some pre-scheduled times that you're going to come along. So you know that you've got some people coming in at predetermined times. And you also then want to be able to have how many qualified conversations, not conversations, qualified conversations. Because just as easily somebody might be coming along and being a bit of a time waster, just having a bit of a chat. You need to be able to learn how to manage that. You need to be polite, understand what it is they're after, and if it's nothing, and if it's not where you can help them, or they're likely to be an ideal customer, for example, say, it's a way of sort of nursing them off the stand and actually pointing them maybe in a direction where they're best suited to, so that it's still they're leaving with a positive outcome of who you are. But actually, who are the people that you do want to talk to? What do you want to talk to them about? And how long do you keep them on the stand for, so that it's correct? And so then you qualify them, and you have a process, whether it's digitally or whether it's on paper or whichever version you're choosing to do, but make sure that it's consistent and robust. And then that you then download that information and get it into your system at the end of each day. Don't wait for a 3-day show and then have all of this stuff piling up, because you'll end up going back to the office and all of a sudden these things don't go in. Put it in at the day that you've received it. Yes, it might take you an extra hour of your day, but it's an hour well worth spent.
Yeah. And then so once people recognise, okay, well, they've come out, the show's over, they've gone back to work, that's when the hard work really starts, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, that's when, because it's lovely chatting up and talking to people, as we know. We're both natural chatters, but it's that going back and going back to them in the right way, where they want to then re-engage with you.
Yeah.
And that's why I said earlier, if you've got bespoke bits of information that you've managed to tease out of them that are pertinent to them, and you can put that back into your response, then they'll know that you have genuinely listened. People that will respond better to people where they feel that they're heard, that you sat and listened to somebody and that you really listened. And when they go, actually, I remember that conversation with Noel, actually, I only remember that bit. And these little things make a difference, because it helps you stand out.
Of course they do, but they all have to pull back to the objective.
Correct.
And how am I measuring that? So what is my success metric there? Is it number of interactions post-show? Is it I know it's different for everybody.
No, but
each objective will be measured in a different way.
But
it's important.
But I would simply say, literally have a process where you're going, right, so if I've found 100 great conversations and I'm following up on them, not all 100 of those are then going to become clients. Of course they're not. That would be fantastic if they would, but it's highly unlikely. And in a CRM process, you have things like marketing qualified leads or sales qualified leads, and then they become sales accepted leads, and then they become actual opportunities. What you want to be able to do is, out of those 100, and I'm just randomly picking the number 100 out of here, how many of those go through the process, and track them, so that you can then understand what is the percentage number of the original conversations that don't go to the next stage, and then those that go on to the next stage after that. So that you know that if you've got a really good qualifying process, so that the next time that you do it, you go, actually, 100 leads was enough, as long as they're the right ones. Statistically, we should get convert 20% of those, or 5% of those, or whatever it is. Because the interesting thing is that if you're cold calling or doing random acts of marketing, there's a stat that's out there that says there's only 5% of the people that you're probably randomly talking to are actually looking to actually buy or change supplier or what have you. Whereas actually most people that turn up to an exhibition, as I said earlier, 81% of them have got buying authority. So if they've got buying authority, they're actually interested in coming and shaking the hands of the
Yeah.
actual brand, the people on
Yeah.
there, understanding what that feels like. So it's way more qualified. That's the value of exhibitions. So by actually monitoring that process, then you can then say that by the second year, because it's only really by the time you've done a full circle of 1 year that you understand it. That's why it's important to keep the data accurate and on top of it, that you understand what you might need to switch up or switch down on. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, very good. Have you got any other top tips for people doing exhibitions?
I think that there's the obvious ones, but you see them. Don't eat on the stand.
Yes, sorry, that was one of the things I wanted to go
Well,
back
don't
to.
eat on the stand, and use the use of your phone on the stand. Seriously, nobody wants. There needs to be a moratorium. There needs to be a sort of bin where everybody puts their mobile phone in for at least 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon to stop people staring into them, because your job there is to engage with people that come down the aisles and have those conversations and be in readiness for the people that have got meetings for you.
Yeah.
And then when you have a busy stand, people are attracted to a busy stand because they think there's something good going on there.
Yeah, crowd draws a crowd.
But it's still horrifying to see people sitting down at a table, either eating and watching their phone at the same time, or just staring at the phone. It just shows they're not engaged with what they're there to do.
Yeah.
So, there are lots of them, but those are the absolute no's.
Yeah.
And also, the optics look terrible.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that goes back to doing it well, isn't it? You could do everything. You could have the best looking stand. You could have the best strategy, the best, really clear objectives. Everything's great. But if the team on the stand are not operating the stand, working the stand effectively, like you say, sitting down, looking at the phone, eating, no one wants to get involved in that. No one's going to come and talk to you.
No.
So the whole thing falls down. So there's so many different elements, and every element's got to be done well.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the biggest ones. Even if you're on a real tight budget and you don't have a lot to put into your stand, you work it really well.
Yeah.
You'll do really well.
Well, people warm to people that just smile,
Yeah.
are pleasant, want to engage with them.
Yeah,
And
a smile goes a long way.
Oh.
Crikey.
100%. So I think, whilst they're obvious, there's that terrible expression, is just because it's common sense doesn't make it common practice. And people go, oh yes, I know. And you go, yeah, I know, but are you actually doing it? Yeah. And they go, well, no, I probably am a victim of doing that. Okay, let's just rewire that. Let's go forward. Let's do it better. Yeah. And think about when you go to a restaurant. Do you give more of a tip to one person over another person? Because what is it? It's their experience of people that came and were attentive, not over attentive. They allowed you to eat your meal, but actually were really pleasant and were really helpful, and you found you had a great experience. That's ultimately, it's that front of house, it's that shop window to your brand.
Yeah.
Effectively, people are turning up, and you are the shop window. You're the window dressing of alongside the brand. And what does it say about you?
Yeah.
And when you get it right, people go, I want to engage. I'm interested. That's curious.
Yeah.
Most people are curious and will ask questions
Yeah.
if you're open to if you're open to that curiosity.
Yeah, brilliant. So one last thing to finish
Yes.
off is, what do you love about exhibitions?
I think I mentioned the word serendipity right at the very beginning. I think everybody does it differently, slightly. Everybody's brand looks different. Everybody's stand looks slightly differently. The messaging, and also there's an element of if you plan to, if you plan your performance and everything that you do, all the things that you hope to do should happen. But if you do that really well, additional stuff happens. But you can't measure that, and it's that serendipity of that one person that might turn up and actually be the most mind-blowing potential customer or prospect that you haven't planned to have a conversation with. And so there's always that unknown element that you can't plan for, but it happens if you plan well. There's the irony of it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, brilliant. Mark, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
And get on and get your show booked.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for coming in to join us. I really hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Mark's a brilliant guy and he's got a lot of value to give. So thank you for your time. So the next thing I'm going to ask you, as I always do, is to take our scorecard. The link to the scorecard is in the description below. And by taking that, you'll get some really good insight into where you're at and where your strengths and weaknesses are, how you can improve on your next exhibition. It's completely free, and you'll get an exclusive report at the end once you've completed it. It takes a couple of minutes and adds a really, really good amount of value. So please take the scorecard. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you'll get exclusive access to all the content as it comes online. And if you have any comments, please leave them. We'd love to get back to you. Any questions, please ask. We really, really do want this to be a resource to help. So please fire away any questions you have. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. We look forward to seeing you again soon.